Welcome to the Leading Lane podcast for real estate pros by real estate pros with your hosts, Ashley Frederick and Stephen Birch. If you're looking for an honest, authentic, and raw perspective, you found it.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Leading Lane podcast. Ashley Frederick here with Stephen Birch. And today we are going to talk about, is it time to hire a coach? And this came from me rolling through some other podcasts, and I stumbled across one, and that was the topic. And it was two agents that have never actually had a coach. And I'll be honest, it was like a 50-minute episode, so maybe it got better. But the first 10 minutes, I had to bow out because they were talking about they don't see the benefit of a coach, that a coach's job is to sell someone on something. So they've done their job by selling them to hire them to coach, and that then they want to sell you on all of these other products, and that at the end of the day, there's tons of free webinars available, and that's the route that you should go, and that they didn't see a value in coaching. And that struck a little bit of a chord with me. One, because I have been coached, and it did tremendous things for me personally and in my business. And secondly, I am a coach, and I definitely don't think that my clients would say that it hasn't benefited them, or that they think that I am out for some types of sales. So I thought that it would be a great opportunity for us to hop on a call and just kind of maybe talk about why we think coaching is important or not important, or who we think coaching might be for. You know, Steve and I both do it on different levels. We've both been coached by different people, and I just think it's a good opportunity because I do think it is always a hot topic, coaching. And I know you and I both struggle with that word sometimes because it is not necessarily what you're doing, but it's hard to encapsulate that into another term that I think is as encompassing.
Yeah, and I do probably think I have to start there, is that I struggle too with the word coach. And because I do think that there are a lot of people that are out there that they just throw coach behind their name, and all of a sudden, they can go out there and get clients. Like, yes, I mean, you can technically, right? But where the difference lies is that making sure that you have somebody that is qualified, and making sure that you know exactly what your goals are that you're wanting to get out of the coach. I've talked to multiple different people when I was looking for a coach, of telling them what I needed, and after having conversations and asking them questions, I was able to identify that they weren't a good fit for me, right? Like, I'm not saying that they were a bad coach by any means, but they were not the coach that I needed right then. So you need to make sure that you have a coach that is able to meet you in your current frame of mind. And then you need to be able to articulate exactly what you're wanting to get out of the coach once you hire them, because it is a service that you're hiring them for, to be able to get you from point A to point B. And it's their job to be able to close that gap. So yes, there are people that are out there that have the title that I don't think should. But I am a firm believer in a coach, a consultant. Let that be a life coach, let that be a business coach, let that be a speaking coach, like whatever of area of expertise that you're looking for. Not to correlate it directly over to the medical field, right? But you go to people that specialize in certain areas. You're not going to go to just a general doctor, and you're going to know more terms than I am on this, right? If you're going to have an issue with your foot, right? Like, and you need surgery on your foot, you're going to want to make sure that you go to this specific one that specializes in that area. So absolutely.
We want to go to a podiatrist.
That's what it is. I don't know. It's the one that they tell me that I have to go to. So, but yeah, no, I know there are multiple people that I've worked with, and I've gotten something from each of them that is completely different. And when I started with one, I was in a completely different space in my life. and really went a lot of on the personal side of things, right? And then when I was ready to advance up, got one that was more on the business side, specifically into recruiting, so that I can, I was not good at it. And so I wanted somebody to be able to coach me in recruiting to help me buffer up my skill set there. So absolutely. I think that coaches get a bad rap, but if you're looking to advance yourself, advance your career, I think it's a necessity to be able to invest in yourself in professional development and be able to learn and grow.
Yeah, I think the other thing is you make a good point as far as interviewing coaches.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that that's one struggle is people maybe think that there's an avenue for coaching, but they don't know what that looks like or what is that qualification. So someone can say that they are a coach or a real estate coach, but I think that they also need to have a background in order to support that. So I think I was having a conversation with someone that said they were looking at a coach and that coach did 4 transactions a year. And I was a little shocked. That doesn't mean that I don't think that that person is a good coach. They might be a great coach, but I guess the way that I looked at it was that there's probably not a lot of experience. I mean, 4 transactions, things come up maybe, but I guess for me, I told them that I'd probably look for someone that is doing, 50 plus transactions a year because that's that many more experiences times however many years that you've had experience that coach can share their knowledge. I think that too, I think that sometimes people take it as a negative thing that you have a coach. I don't know where that came into play, but I think that it's our society and that we don't like to ask for help. And that, if you say you have a coach, it's almost like a negative thing. And I don't know why.
I think that it's totally different here, but I'm going to make a connection. Like, it's no different than if you were to say that you're going to therapy. I think that there's that same negative stigma, if you will, that if I say that I'm going to therapy, it'd be like, ooh, right? Like, not saying coaching and therapy are the same thing, but it should not be a negative thing if somebody is going to therapy or if somebody's getting coached on whatsoever.
Right. I think it goes back to, you think about, coach obviously a lot of times goes back to the sports world. But if you think about, Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant, like they were at the top of their game, but they were still had trainers and coaches because there's a part of accountability that falls into this. And we live in a society where we get easily distracted, and, maybe scrolling TikTok for 30 minutes might be better than making phone calls. But it's kind of like, I could kind of relate it to, like maybe Weight Watchers, same thing. So when you have accountability and you have to weigh in every week, you make different choices. And that's how I feel. So for my clients, I give them action items, and I think that for them, right, it's a matter of like a pride of getting through those action items. And when they're getting through them, and, I'll maybe send it like a little text message, hey, haven't seen this yet. And then I see it like 5 minutes later. They got distracted, but the point was that they knew that they were struggling and they knew that they weren't where they wanted to be. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with helping other people. There's nothing wrong with wanting someone to maybe show you a better way of doing things. Let's be honest. I think I've shown them a couple things to do that will make their lives easier, which that is the point of coaching, is how can I improve someone's life? How can I improve someone's daily functions? Whether that's at home. I mean, as you said, a lot of times these conversations end up with personal talk, and that's great too, because sometimes you just need to hear it from someone that isn't local, isn't in your office, isn't someone that you spend every day with. And I think that's where in my opinion, it's not a bad thing. I agree. There are some coaches that might just want to try to sell you on something, but I think for the most part, you can typically pick up on that pretty fast. And I think that if you come in with clear indications as to what you're looking for, so maybe that's, I'm looking to increase my sales by 20%, or I'm looking to recruit 5 more agents, or I'm looking to work on my marketing plan. I don't have enough. I don't feel like I work with enough sellers. Like, those are very specific things that not every coach is going to be able to help you with. So if you're interviewing these coaches and seeing what their experience is, do you have experience with listings? Do you have experience with buyer agency? These are very specific questions. If you need help with them, why not find the person that's going to help you get to that next level? And it also doesn't mean that you're with them for life. I mean, maybe it's a 12-week or a 12-month, whatever that might be, where now you feel like I'm killing it, got back to the basics. I have someone that like helped me see through the bullshit that I was telling myself, and now I'm on the right path. And then the coaching's over, and that's great. That means we've done our job. And maybe it's a 6 months check-in, and you realize that maybe you've gone off the rails a little bit. But I think that that's where it's just important for people to recognize that it's not a bad thing to be coached. And I even feel as a coach that it helps me. So when I'm checking on someone about, have you done X, Y, Z? And then I think to myself, well, I haven't done that yet. So I should probably do that.
Right.
So it's just kind of funny how you can impact yourself by doing those things, because it's hard for me to tell someone to do something and if I'm not doing the same exact thing. So I think that there's twofold in that it actually helps the coach and the client, do better on both sides.
Absolutely. And, like it was funny that you pulled out like Michael Jordan, right? And Kobe Bryant. I just read 2 different books, did not realize they were by the same author, but it was by Tim Grover. And the first book that I read was Resentless. And it is talking about how Michael Jordan, obviously Michael Jordan had the trainers with the actual team trainers, but he wanted to be able to go above and beyond and wanted to be able to step out from them. And not that their trainers were poor by any means. Obviously they did extremely well, but he wanted to be the best version of himself. So he needed to hire somebody else to be able to get him exactly where he needed to. So that's where Tim Grover came into play, right? And it talks about the different people. I think we always hear, at least I do, ABC, always be closing. And you want to be a closer. You want to be a closer. Like that never rubbed me the right way whatsoever. But what he now puts it in above a closer is going to be a cleaner. And a cleaner is truly somebody that is the cleaner that you are, the dirtier that you're going to get. And so it's a whole different level of who you are, how you're going to be. You're going to be completely resentless. And it was very eye-opening in reading that book about how even the best of the best are getting coached, right? Mm-hmm. These people that are getting paid crazy amount of dollars to be in top performance, top shape, are still investing in themselves, not just being status quo. And they are wanting to make sure that they get exactly where they're going to want to be. That's why we have these remarkable people like Michael Jordan, right? So, and when you're going, I'm going to go back to your guy that sells 4 deals a year. There's nothing wrong with selling 4 deals a year. We don't know, his sales volume, whatever.
Probably 5 million each house. I mean, good for him.
and that's fantastic. But if I'm an agent and I'm already selling 40 deals a year, I'm not going to go and hire somebody that is selling 4. I want to be able to hire somebody that is going to be selling like you, right? Like I'm going to hire you. You're selling on average 100 deals a year. I want to be like you. And how can you get me there with the least amount of tension, the least amount of headaches, the turbulence that you experience? Teach me, coach me to get me there quicker. And then once you get there, then what is the next step, right? You may no longer be the coach for them. And then you're going to be able to pass them on to whatever recommendation that you need to make to get them where they need to be. Our job as a coach and leaders is not to hold these people and only get them there where they're wanting to be and then make sure that they're not going anywhere else. Our goal as a coach is to be able to give them the chin checks, the kick in the ass that they need, and be able to see the true spark that maybe we don't see in ourselves. We need to be able to pull that own internal superhero out of them, show them how, what they're capable of doing, and teach them the confidence to be able to put that cape on every single day and show it to be the best person and version of themselves that they possibly can be. That's what a coach is for. And and maybe I'm wrong on this, but I a lot of times when I work with people, they want to work with me because they want the systems, they want the processes, they want all of these like shiny things, which that's part of it. Don't get me wrong. But in reality, I don't think that they really realize when you start working with me is that we're first going to look in the mirror. I'm going to have you look in the mirror. We're going to look at that self-reflection, that self-identity. And because if we can't do that self-reflection, no matter what processes we put into play, no matter what type of tool or tech or anything else that we put into play, it's not going to work. Right. And more than likely, you're going to fail if you don't start with yourself and figuring out what are you doing wrong, or what could you do better? What do you need to stop doing? What do you need to get off of your plate, right? What do you need to stop with these limiting beliefs and these bullshit stories, right? So sometimes we go into it thinking that we want one thing, but in reality, we're pulling out way more and getting way more foundation work than we ever thought that we would actually be getting, which then that is truly where the success happens. And we're able to see people skyrocket just based off of, because now they have a different perspective of themselves and know that they are capable of a lot more than what they entered into this relationship with.
I think you're right. A lot of people might choose to work with a coach because they want more sales or they want more numbers or whatnot. And then when you start it, there's so much more behind that. Like, what does that actually mean? And why do you think that? And then you really start to delve into their processes, their systems, and you realize that there's just room for improvement there, which, that's why they hired us. You make a good point about investing. So I think that's the other thing that people struggle with is it is an investment in yourself. I think people struggle with investing in themselves. But in the same sense, it's funny that, people will go to like a boutique and spend, $500 or $600 on like 4 new outfits, right? Like, great, fantastic. Makes you feel good or whatnot. But what if you were saving that money and you were putting it towards someone that is actually trying to help you, feel better, improve your bottom line, improve your processes so that maybe you have more time with family, you can take more time away from the office. And I think that's where we always struggle. And to me, it's like, if you could pay a coach and whatever that might be, if you get one more transaction than what you would have had, right. It probably paid for the last 3 months of coaching. I think that's where people get the disconnect, is they're so afraid to spend money and they're not going to get the return on investment. But if you try to scale that back one and be like, actually, like, if whatever I'm doing gets me 2 clients this quarter, it actually paid for a coach for the next 6 months. Right. I mean, if you break it down that simple, I don't understand. I mean, there's the same thing when we decided to hire you as our consultant, like, right? There's a price tag to that. And I was like, oh, shit, like, can we do that? And I know that I say it all the time. And at that point in time, there was like one change that you had advised for us, and it would net us $25,000 more a year. And that was just one change. So I was like, well, that paid for itself like real fast. And then it was just a matter of how many other changes and what that did to our bottom line. And to date, that was our best investment, was we needed to do things differently. We need someone to look at it. And now we're completely different where we were a year ago because we took the chance to invest in ourselves. But now that's allowed us to invest into our office, into our agents, into our community, all because of one decision to invest in our company.
Absolutely. And that's the trickle effect, right? Like, because you made that and you made the investments, it goes down to all of the agents. And so that's where I think that people also need to make sure that they're recognizing is, who else are you lifting up with you when you make the investment into yourself? And those agents, your agents now, what if each of those agents are now going to go and add an additional 2 units per year per agent? That's a huge number, right? So it constantly snowballs when you invest in yourself. But I think that what we have to make sure that we say here is that you have to turn around and invest in others, right? You have to be the leader and be able to make sure that you're bringing the other people with you. And, the also with this too, is just because you hire a coach or a consultant, whatever you want to call it, does not mean it's instantly going to change overnight. You have to still put in the work. you have to still make sure that you're wanting it. You have to, like, the best analogy is, just because you buy a gym membership does not mean that you're going to be in shape. Your ass has to go to the freaking gym, and you still have to put the reps in. You still have to be able to show up every single day, right? Like, you still have to eat healthy. All of those collectively then get you into the healthy shape that you're looking to go into, not just because you hired the personal trainer or just got the gym membership. You have to still do the work.
I think it goes back to the tortoise and the hare, right? I mean, we all think that we're in a sprint, which I get it. Like, it feels like some days we're sprinting every which way. But if you take a step back, I mean, this really is a marathon. Mm-hmm. And if you can slow it down and chunk it out, you know, I talk to my clients about what we're doing. You might not see the effects for 6 months, might even be a year, you know, but a lot of it has to do with database management, staying in flow with people, those types of things. Sometimes you'll get lucky and you'll see it right away, but it's going to be the 7 months later that you had reached out to someone, and then they're like, oh, that's right, they just reached out to me. But I will say you're right in that I find joy when clients are influencing others. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times they'll talk about an idea I brought up, and they brought it back to their office, and now, you know, 2 or 3 other agents are doing what that agent is doing. And I, you know, tell that agent, like, kudos for you, because you're leading the way, like, you're leading changes. And at the end of the day, if that helps them be a better agent, so that when you're in a transaction with them, they saw that you were doing something different and they learned from it. I think that it's empowering for those clients too, to then turn around and be like, oh my gosh, I got to tell this other agent about what you said, and now they're going to try it. And to me, that's even like, maybe I don't even know that other person, but what I taught someone, now they're teaching someone else. And for me, that's the ultimate. Like, that's exactly why we're doing this, is we're working to raise the bar in the industry. And the mm-hmm. amount of people that we touch that keep on just filtering that out is how we become, you know, the high bar that we're supposed to be. We can help each other. I think it's just a matter of trying to not tear each other down. And, you know, if you hear that someone is being coached, like, be happy for them. Like, great. That's great that you took that initiative on. If you want to ask questions, ask questions. But, you know, it's not for everyone. And like you said, some people outgrow it. But I just think that we have to get past the negative notation, if you will, because there's an endless opportunity for other people to help other people. And if your heart's in it for the right reason, it makes sense all around.
Yeah. You know, I'm going to go back to, you know the story, and I'm not going to throw it all on blast, but there's challenges that I've seen, you know, in this industry as a whole. In real estate, it's a competitive industry. And ever since I got into coaching and consulting, I think it's even more apparent that it's a competitive industry there as well, right? And at the end of the day, it does not matter who you get coaching from or get help from, a mentor, therapist, I don't care where, as long as you're advancing yourself. So the competition doesn't need to be there, and you should empower and support and, you know, clap for your people that are getting the help that they need, right? The help that they want. That's what they're seeking. So it does not matter where it's going. I don't care if it's me. I don't care if it's Ashley. I don't care if it's whomever else out there that you want to go. And you just need to be able to make that initial aha that you are looking for help, and you will be able to get there. But also with this story, just because, you know, it's about me and it gives me a little bit of a kudos here, is that this other individual, you know, I was talking to now a client, and they were talking about this other coaching experience that they can go through. And I asked them, why aren't you going to go through that? Like, that's going to help your agents. Like, what's up? And he told me, he goes, well, that would have worked probably 30 years ago, 40 years ago in this industry. But that's not what's happening now. We don't have a pulse. So they don't have a pulse on truly what is happening, boots on the ground. And I said, so why are you going to hire me? And he goes, well, it's because you actually own and operate. You have the track, you know, record to be able to show. you are no bullshit. Like I'm not selling stuff. And that's the beauty of this too, is I don't just take on anybody, right? Like I want to make sure that we're both going to be working in this relationship and it's together. And because of those expectations, because I knew exactly what I was able to offer, and I knew the things that I would not be able to or be willing to work with his group on, like it made it very clear and precise so that we're not having this back and forth. But because I'm continuing to invest in myself versus others are not, they got to a peak and they're no longer growing, like still continue. A coach needs a coach. We all need coached. I think it's so important. And it cracks me up that these two individuals that you're talking about on this podcast, that they say no and they don't have a coach. Maybe they're doing great and being completely successful, no clue who they are. But my goodness, if you were able to have somebody give you a different perspective on what you're already doing extremely well and how you can do it even better or grow yourself even better, why wouldn't you want that opportunity?
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I think that it wasn't even when I had my first coach, I don't think it was like a negative notation. I think that it was just I didn't know where to turn, especially in a small town. Like, so for me, I have zero desire to be coached by someone locally. I need someone that, right, like is outside of my area. Maybe it has to do with real estate. Maybe it doesn't have to do with real estate, because that's when I feel like you truly grow. I think that has happened, like even between you and I, right? Like we're in different parts of the world. Our offices are different sizes, but we still push each other and pick each other's brains. Or I think I randomly like sent you a text message like, hey, I have a thought. Right. And I shoot, right. And I share it and you're like, oh my God, never thought about that. That's great. But right, it's just us with different life experiences, either because you're male or you're female, or because where you live, or what age you are, or what demographics. If you can pull from people outside of other areas, like all that does is make you a well-rounded human, so that when you do encounter those, you're like, oh, like, yep, we did talk about that, or I never thought about that before, or I've never had that experience before, but now I just told you about it. You're probably going to run across that experience and be glad that we talked about it. And I think that that's just the misnomer of, especially if you've never been coached. I think the other thing that's most frustrating for me is that there are a lot of programs out there, if you will, and you kind of touched on it, but they've never had boots on the ground. And it's super frustrating for me. One of the things, which maybe I'll get around to, I know you will as well, is that a lot of speakers in real estate have never practiced real estate. So I get super frustrated that there are people on stage and, they might have people underneath them that have practiced real estate, but I just don't understand how, like, you're speaking to a room full of people about real estate, but you've never unlocked a door. You have never lost a transaction. You have never watched, had to pick up the pieces after somebody, passed away, and you have to meet with their family in their home, watch divorces, watch people have babies and now they need bigger homes. Like there's so many emotions, threaten to be sued, threaten to have all those things. Like those are all a lot of life experiences that if you aren't boots on the ground, if you haven't been in the trenches, I just feel like you can only give so much information or so much. I mean, I like to say, well, this happened in this transaction to me. And I think that that's where the credibility comes into, because I have done it. I've seen what works. I've seen what doesn't work. I have watched agents spend money on crazy things that had they invested in themselves in the first place, they probably would have made it. And our industry and our, society, things aren't easy. People aren't kind. And I think that's where, if you are surrounding yourself with people or you have a coach that can walk you through those, is kind, is supportive, checks in when they haven't heard from you, like those are basic human skills that we seem to have kind of sat by the wayside. And if we can bring that back into your everyday life, and now you're looking forward to those phone calls, and you're looking forward to growing your business, and then people start to just realize that. So I think that was one thing that you mentioned about, who it's for and that competition. What I tell people is you and I could do the same exact thing and it will not look the same, because we are two different humans. Like, people just want to see Stephen authentically Stephen. They just want to see Ashley authentically Ashley. You and I could have the same exact listing presentation. It will not come across to the same to someone else. I think that's where people need to understand too, that you can have the same coach, you can have the same systems, but at the end of the day, it's still you as a person. And a conversation I was having with one of my clients too is that people just want to see you. They want to know you. They want to gravitate towards you. And I think she said something about somebody else in her market was doing videos. And I was like, and that person isn't you. I was like, sure, she might be doing videos, but at the end of the day, if people know you, like you, and trust you, and they're seeing you be your authentic self on camera, they're going to come back to you every single time.
Absolutely. They need to see the personality. They need to know your morals. They need to know like where your mindset is. Like people want to work with like people, right? Like it goes back and forth that are there. So, and again, I cannot stress enough, like to me, coaching is not a program. This is my opinion. It's not a program. This is not a college course to where you have to be able to, ace the midterm, and this is exactly how it's going to go. What a coach is supposed to do is be able to ignite and fuel the fire within you, give you the tools, and empower you to be able to move forward, not to dictate exactly how you do things and what you do. Those things are two totally different things. I have to laugh. My cousin was telling me about, he was taking an entrepreneurship course in college, and I was like, oh yeah, cool. What is the instructor? What is the professor? Like, what did they do? And he was like, well, what do you mean? I was like, well, if they're teaching entrepreneurship, like, shouldn't they be an entrepreneur? Like, shouldn't they have done it? And he was like, I've never even thought of it that way before. I was like, you are learning from somebody that learned from a textbook.
Yep.
Are there going to be foundation? Are there going to be things that you're going to learn from it? Absolutely. I'm not even saying that you're not going to learn something. But if I'm going to be wanting to go after entrepreneurship, I want to learn from an entrepreneur, right? Like, so it just goes back to, again, making sure it's the correct choice, and whatever that may be, what you're after, in asking the correct questions. But truly, again, all of it goes back to you. What are you truly looking to do? How are you looking to grow? In what manner? In what areas? Business, personal, and even drill down even further. What areas within business or personal are you wanting to be able to better yourself and be a better version of yourself?
Well, and I think that's the other thing, is that there is no magic book. There is no like, hey, like week 1, we're going to talk about this. And I'll be honest, I thought that that's how it might be. And then through coaching, I realized that it is like you're meeting them where they're at. And I have a simple questionnaire that really helps me understand where they're at.
Sure.
I like to have them star themselves like on a 1 to 5, right? So those 1s and 2s, like that's an immediate focus. The next person, they might have 4s and 5s in that category. But then for me, I like to do the check-ins and like, oh, that star number 2 moved up to a star number 4. So they're feeling more confident in those types of things. And it just, I think it's just really rewarding for me to watch people grow and have business come in that they didn't think was going to come in. And it's these foundations that we set that I said might not, you might not see them, but then when they do actually start to see them, they're like, oh my God, it's working.
Yeah.
It's really fun to see those, excitement and whatnot. But I think my final question for you is, I think that coaching is available for anyone, but like, what would you say, like, if someone's feeling or like where they're at in their life, like, when do you think it's a good time to consider, is it time for me to hire a coach?
I think that when you have that inkling in you, that feeling of, man, I'm down in the dumps. My production isn't there. I'm not feeling like I'm doing well. Whatever, like, it does not matter. Whatever that slump is, I'm going to call it a slump. And when you recognize that you are in a slump in whatever area of life that you are, I think that is the time to start exploring, what can I do to help me get out of this slump? I can only go off of mine. Like, I first tried therapy, and talk therapy wasn't for me. Then what I did was, I found a hypnotherapist that really worked for me. I didn't think it would jive with me, but I tried it and it worked. Then I realized I need to grow on business side of things, right? So then I went that direction. So I really kind of stacked all of this and continued to be able to do it. But to answer your question, like, when do you start doing, like, I think everybody is that there's some sort of area in life for everybody that they would like to be able to advance in and get better at. And so I think now is the time for you to start exploring the option. But it's not going to work until you're open-minded and open-hearted to be able to accept whatever the challenges that are thrown your way. Just because, again, you have the coach does not mean it's going to change overnight. You have to be open and willing to be able to make those different changes within yourself to be able to see that growth.
You have to be able to put the work in, right? Without the work, then it doesn't, you could hire every single coach under the sun.
Yep.
But unless you're willing to put the work in, whether it's self-development, systems, whatever that might be, you have to be willing to put the work in order to actually see a difference. But I think you're right. I think it's a slump. I think for me too, it was maybe a feeling of like desiring more, or what else is out there, or what am I missing, or I feel like I could be doing more. I think that is another avenue too, of just the feeling of, or desire of wanting more and wanting to know what that might look like.
I knew that there was more out there, right? I didn't know where to find it, but I knew that there is more, and I wanted to find whatever the more was. So, cool. Well, great talk. I really enjoyed this one. I'm glad that you came across those two agents having the discussion about not needing a coach, because I think we debunked that one. Not true. Right. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Greatly appreciate you. Please go like and subscribe to our Facebook and check us out at leadinglaneco.com. Have a fantastic day.
You've enjoyed today's episode. Please like, subscribe, and share with others. Stay connected for more genuine insights and strategies to boost your real estate career on Facebook, or check out our website. We'll see you next time.